What up, YouTube? It's your man, Logician, back with some more hot science and true knowledge. I wanted to talk about, before I take my little hiatus, a little something about the root of most of the problems that we have in the African American community and in America in general, and really in general mankind. And many of the problems that we have in the African American community, first of all, they're not going to be solved by arguing with one another. Just making, threats, character assassination, this general emotional, this letting of, just emotions that have built up over the course of, whatever experiences people have had in life, and throwing them at other people, all in the name of, quote, telling people what they need to do to change. But addressing this situation in a loving and understanding manner, and putting ourselves in the other person's shoes and the other party's shoes, and looking at the situation from other people's perspective, and having a perspective of looking back at history and how the events in the past have contributed to the situation in the present. All these are things that have to be done in order for solutions to the problems in our community to be solved. And without them, the chaos will continue. Almost unchallenged. So, to the small group of people in the African American community, and the small group of people throughout humanity that wants to see things in our communities get better, and wants to see human beings behave in a civilized manner toward one another, so that peace, love, and justice can reign and rule, in our lives. We have to do things a little different. So I just want to take everybody back to sort of the root, what I believe is the root of the problem in a lot of the situations that we have. Of course, me being a Christian, it ultimately goes back to Adam and Eve, and the fact that so many people on this earth are really devoid and ignorant and have no relationship with their own Creator. So, aside from that, when you look at the black community and you look at Americans in general, we have to understand that we live in a culture, we live in a system that has been designed for us to live in. We exist in a social environment that has been cleverly put together over a long period of time by some very, very smart people and evil people. Some very smart and evil people whose agenda it is to eventually subjugate the entire human race and to rule and reign as, basically the gods of this earth, while, everybody else either dies off or tends to their needs, okay, i.e. the one world government, the Illuminati, or whatever you want to call them. And by now, if you still believe this stuff is just a conspiracy theory, I don't know where you need to take your head out of your butt. And I'm sorry I have to be, so harsh with my language, but it's just no excuse for you not to know what's going on the planet. So, first of all, slavery for black people was economic. Okay, it didn't have anything to do with racism. It wasn't about white people hated black people. It was about white people wanting to make money, and they saw the Arabs taking on the other side, the west side of Africa, with the big Arab slave trade, with taking African slaves like they're doing over there in Darfur and other countries. So these white guys decided they needed to do the same thing because they killed all of the Native Americans here in America and South America and Central America. Native Americans just couldn't take it, so they went and got the Africans. So slavery is first economic, okay? It's not about racism. But in order for you to to engineer somebody's consciousness, somebody that was once had a type of autonomy and freedom about themselves, a type of a proud culture that had their own language, their own belief systems, maybe their own separate views of the world and what it means to be a human being and what life is about. You have to completely destroy all of that and replace those ideologies with your own contrived and specifically constructed belief systems in order for that person to willingly serve you as a slave. You have to destroy your culture, your language, your religion, whatever you believe. Everything has to be decimated. Your will and your spirit has to be absolutely broken as a person, as a people, as a community, in order to be forced into slavery. And this is with anybody. I read a book called, I can't remember the name of it, but it was written by a pimp, supposed pimp. The book sounded like a real pimp to me, and he was talking about how he took a woman and made her into a hoe, a prostitute. And he had a system he called breaking the bitch down. And what he would do, he would stand a woman, he would strip her till she was either almost naked or naked in a house in the ghetto somewhere. And he would have people come through and just berate her, just dog her out, tell her how ugly she was, tell her she wasn't worth nothing, she was a stank hole. Every horrible, dehumanizing thing you can think of. By the time it's all over with, she doesn't, over the course of time, she doesn't feel like she's really a real human being, and is willing to do whatever for the attention / love of the pimp. And her mind and her will is completely broken. So that's what he called breaking the bitch down. And that's what these slave traders did. Okay, the same scenario. They broke people down. And the military does the same thing. The military is really, the boot camp is really an indoctrination, mind control process where they break your will, they break everything you believe down, and they give you a new set of beliefs so that you now serve the military willingly. And if it comes down to it, you die for the military. You follow orders, you do whatever you're told, and you might end up getting your head blown off because of it, and you do it willingly. So we first have to understand that our people here in this country, it starts off with horrible initiation from what's called trauma-based mind control. That's what the whole breaking the bitch down situation is. It's called trauma-based mind control, where violence, the threat of violence, physical violence, and fear are the main tools that the person in control uses to destroy and break down the will and the spirit of the person that's is going to be controlled, the person who's going to be a slave. So this is what happened to our psyche 400 years ago. That's why slavery in this country had to be so dehumanizing and so vicious and so evil and so wretched, in order to continually break the spirits of the people, of the black people that they had in this country. So y'all see me on part 2.